Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. The Phils are heading into a monster stretch of their schedule. What are the proper expectations that the fan base should have for the performance of the team? We'll talk about it on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You might know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic here in Philadelphia doing sports talk radio for over 5 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure that you're rating and reviewing if you're watching or listening to us in podcast form. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. But speaking of watching, like I almost said by accident, you can watch us on YouTube as well. And if you're doing that right now, hit that subscribe button on the Locked On Phillies YouTube channel. Keeps you updated on when all of our videos are posted. That way you never miss any news. It's free, it's easy, and all that stuff really helps us out here. So if you like the content, I'd really appreciate you doing that. Honestly, it makes a world of difference for us here at Locked On Phillies. Today's episode. So the Phils had an off day last night. Much needed. Went through a great stretch. They earned it. They were traveling out to Houston. They'll play the Astros tonight. But they've got a tough stretch in general coming up. So we're going to take a look. Yesterday, we kind of peeked at the schedule between now and, well, really the All-Star break. We're going to talk about expectations for that and why you might need to temper them just a little bit and why it's okay if the Phillies don't continue this hot stretch that they've been on. I know you want to see the team win. We're going to talk about why that may not be the most realistic thing for what they have in front of them. We're also going to just discuss, speaking of the All-Star break, some thoughts on All-Stars for the Philadelphia Phillies. Who may make it? Who should make it? Do you want guys to make it? Could it be motivation? All of that. And then we'll take a look at Game 1 of Phillies Astros. Another big series starts tonight. Ranger on the mound facing off against Framber Valdez. We'll break all of that down for you. But let's look at this because I went through it yesterday. But if you missed yesterday's episode, off day, I know you might have unplugged a little bit. That's okay. The stretch that they have from now until the All-Star break, it's pretty much brutal. It's the toughest stretch, in my opinion, of the season. From now until what we're looking at, the All-Star break starts. Their final game is on July 13th against the Padres. So there's a ways to go still, but it's going to get on us quick. And there's not really an easy series between now and then. You got the 3 against the Astros, who are a really good team. I'd like to see the Phillies win this series, but you got a tough road trip there. And then to Atlanta. Atlanta just beat the Mets again last night. They're kind of rolling. I'd like to see that series won more than I'd like to see the Astros series won. And we'll talk about all of these series and games as they come and go. But just as kind of an overview. But let's say they just go 3-3 on this road trip. They go 500. We'll be okay with that. I promise. Like, that should be an okay result because then the Padres come down. That's a huge series. I mean, I want to see the Phillies take 2 or 3 in all of these, but that's going to be tough. And the Reds are here too for the homestand. Let's say you go, I don't know, 4-2 on that homestand because you should be able to handle Cincinnati, even though they're a 41-win baseball team right now. And they're only 1 win behind the Padres. It feels like when I say Padres and Reds, oh, well, Padres, significantly better team. The Reds are playing good baseball. So I don't know. Or maybe you go 4-2 against the in this road trip, and then you go 3-3 in the homestand. I think the Phillies and their record would show they're a much better home team. Then you got the Giants out in San Francisco, the Padres out in San Diego, your final 2 series before the All-Star break. So I don't know, man. If you just go 500 on both of those road trips and you go 4-2 at home, that's only 2 games over 500 the rest of the way. That would be 10-8 of their remaining 18 games before the All-Star break. Now let's think about what that feels like. There could be Phillies getting swept in there. They could be getting a sweep here and there, but that could be losing a couple of these series. And if you just go 500 on the road, 500 on the road, and 4-2 at home, you're not going to be saying, like, no one's going to be hanging out their Phillies World Series flags outside of their house for the summer if the Phillies do that, just on gut feeling, right? But that would put the Philadelphia Phillies at the All-Star break 2 games over 500 from where they sit right now. And right now they're 16 games over 500. So they would be 18 over 500 at the break. That's pretty darn good, guys. That's a solid spot to be. That will have them in position to make a push for a top playoff seeding, right? That will be all they need to do. And by the way, the schedule opens up after the All-Star break so much. I mean, Angels, Red Sox, Yankees, that's tough. But then White Sox, August, you got a big one with the Tigers, but then the Orioles, the Rangers, the Reds again, the Nationals. I mean, you don't really have any other juggernaut teams outside of your divisional matchups with the Mets. That's your last tough one. And then you have the Dodgers one more time. But the Phillies are able to make this work if they can just survive this stretch. This is the toughest stretch of the season that they're in right now. And it already started with the Mets. And I guess you could kind of go back and say that it extends back further than that, though the Marlins being in there kind of breaks it up a little bit. But even the Cubs and the Rays and the Phils have been handling Cubs and Jays, I should say. And the Phillies have won 4 straight series. So they can beat these teams. And maybe they just go on an absolute heater and we come out of the stretch saying, damn, they're actually World Series contenders, as is. And the trade deadline, they're just going to add to that. But I think the more likely outcome is going to be a give and take here over the next couple weeks, right? You're going to be having some rough nights. Then you're going to be having some good nights. But you got to this is not thrive time for the Phillies, okay? This is not build the lead. This is not show us you're a championship team. No, this is survive a tough stretch of the schedule. Just get through it without anything crazy happening. And maybe to you that sounds like defeatist. Maybe to you that sounds like I'm not confident enough in this baseball team who has one of the better records in all of the majors right now. But I'm giving you the reality. I'm tempering your expectations. The Phils aren't just going to go out and keep winning series like this. I don't think, at least. They're going to have some missteps in there. We've seen it already. And even with the ebbs and flows of the season, they're still in a pretty good spot. I brought up previously, hey, watch the month of June. The Mets have a pretty easy schedule. The Phillies have a pretty tough schedule. I don't know that the Phillies are going to be in a good spot at the end of June, but it doesn't mean they can't make up for it. Now, luckily, the Mets have fallen off the face of the earth, and the Phillies have handled their business. But, again, tough stretch of the schedule. So you can't just go into every series saying, well, this team's supposed to win the World Series. They should beat everybody. That's not how baseball works, especially in the regular season, especially in the dog days of summer. We're in a spot now where you're going to see a lot more discourse about the Philadelphia Phillies. Why is that? Well, that's because the NBA season is over. The NHL season is over. Football is kind of in their dead zone between OTAs and true training camp. And that doesn't start until mid to late July. So that'll happen after the All-Star break. But from now until the All-Star break, the only game in town is the Philadelphia Phillies. The only game nationally is Major League Baseball, really, unless you're like watching golf for the Club World Cup, for soccer, and great events. I'm not saying you just have to live and breathe baseball, but my point is this. There's nothing to take the eyes off the Phillies. So if they play well, they're going to garner more support. If they play poorly, there's going to be some people that are like, I'm a big hoops head, but now I'm starting to see who's good around baseball. The Phillies, they just lost 2 or 3 to the Astros. That team stinks. You're going to see more of a focus on the Phillies, and that's just how it goes when you're the only major North American sport that's ongoing of the big 4 leagues, right? So I don't want to see people, if this team goes 500 from now to the All-Star break, I don't want to see them roll into the All-Star break 16 games over 500 and say, yeah, this team's not good enough. They're terrible. I don't like them. They haven't won consistently. There's all these issues. You have to have a little bit of a measure of how difficult of a part of their schedule they're in. And all teams have these difficult stretches of schedule. It's not an excuse for the Phillies to drop in the standings. It's not an excuse for the Phillies to give themselves a tougher road through the end of July and August and September to capturing the division and a high playoff seed in the National League. It's not something that should make you think about, will the Phillies sell at the trade? No, the Phillies are not selling at the trade deadline. They're buying. It's not even a thought in anybody's minds right now, or at least it shouldn't be. But I don't want this team crushed unnecessarily for a time of the year when you kind of just got to tread water. All right. You just got to survive. A boat showing up post All-Star break. And you just got to paddle your way to that point. Keep your head above water. Just keep swimming. And the Phillies will be just fine once they come out of this stretch. And maybe they'll exceed my expectations. Maybe they'll exceed your expectations if you're alongside me with this. Maybe if you want them to continue to play baseball like this, which we all do, or I should say expect them to continue to play baseball like they have over the last week and a half, maybe they'll meet your expectations. I'm not saying don't go out and try and win. I'm just saying for us on the outside looking in, be careful of how you evaluate this baseball team between now and the All-Star break, because there are going to be some rough spots in there. I'm telling you now, I can just feel it. I can see it in the schedule. You can pick up the trends of the season if you watch closely enough. I just feel like one of those is coming at some point in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I don't want people to overreact to that, but it depends also how it happens. It doesn't mean the Phillies are faultless in these next 2 to 3 weeks because they're at a tough stretch of the schedule. So that's just laying out of expectations before we head deeper into the gauntlet. You've heard that term with Eagle seasons in the past. If you follow the Philadelphia Eagles closely, they had one that killed their season in 2023. I don't think that's going to happen to the Phillies, but part of it is you got to survive it. You got to go out, just play good, consistent baseball every day, try and win a couple more than you lose, and just understand what the goal is here, which is get through the tough stretch, right? A couple of long road trips, a couple of West Coast swings. It's going to be a testing time of the season. We're going to really – I don't think this is going to tell us who the Phillies are not, but if they perform really well, maybe it will remind us who this Phillies team is supposed to be. There's my philosophical schedule thought of the day. But speaking of the All-Star break, the Phillies, well, they have a couple of guys in the mix, but they don't really look like they have a bona fide favorite at any position. How many Phillies could be All-Stars this year? And is it a big deal that they don't have as many as last year? Because they won't have as many as last year. We'll talk about it next as the All-Star voting continues, and so does Locked On Phillies. All right, let's talk about a new friend of ours here, Rugia. Now, guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, maybe even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugia Ready. Rugia Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugia's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue, kicks in fast. On average, 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment's right. If traditional options haven't worked for you, Rugia might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch, and it's completely online, which means Rugia can connect you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. That's what we all need, right? That's something that's very, very important to us as men. So head to Rugia.com/LockedOnMLB and make sure you use code LockedOnMLB and you'll get 15% off today. That's Rugia, RUGIET.com/LockedOnMLB. And again, use promo code LockedOnMLB for 15% off. Go ahead and check out our friends over at Rugia. All-Star conversation. Yeah. How are the Phillies going to stack up against other teams as far as All-Star nods are concerned? Well, if that other team is the 2024 Phillies, it won't be as good. Last year, the Phillies sent a lot of guys to the All-Star game, and that's because they were red hot for basically the entire pre-All-Star break section of the schedule. They had started to taper off a little bit by this point last year, but they still had guys with incredible numbers. So Alec Boehm, All-Star starter at third base. Trey Turner, All-Star starter at shortstop. Bryce Harper, All-Star starter at first base. A bunch of pitchers making it. They had a bunch of guys that were worthy last year. And this year, not quite as much. The numbers don't look as stellar. Even though the team's very good, the standout performances don't seem to stand out as much. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Let's look at that first. Because to me, a team that's winning consistently to the level that the Philadelphia Phillies are. I mean, just to remind you where they're at in the standings, when you look at Major League Baseball right now, the Phillies have the third best record. So you might say, well, how are they the third best record with fewer All-Stars than last year? Well, last year they were a great team. But maybe that says this is a more balanced team effort to get to these 47 wins the Phillies have through their first 78 games. By the way, just looking at the numbers, you are 4 games away from the 3 games away from the halfway point of the season. Math, not my strong suit. 81 is the halfway. So 3 games away. Once you get done this Astros series, we're going to be halfway. So when they finish this series up on Thursday, we are going to have a conversation about the first half. It'll be a big episode for us here on Locked On Phillies. Take a look back at everything. But just looking at all-star potential, we're going to run through some of the guys, right? Bryce Harper, currently injured, doesn't have great numbers. I don't think he's going to get the all-star nod this year. I don't think he deserves to get the all-star nod this year. I'm not saying I don't like Bryce Harper. I love the guy. I just don't think he's had an all-star start. Bryson Stott, no way. Just has fallen off the face of the earth. Trey Turner absolutely has to be an all-star. He's been huge for this team. He still leads the National League in hits. He is a monster at the dish. He is doing everything the Phillies wanted him to do at the plate, and he's doing some on the base pass as well. I know there are some other great options at shortstop, but I think that Trey Turner deserves an all-star nod. Maybe not all-star starter, but he deserves to be there in Atlanta for the all-star game that weekend or the week of, I guess, July 13th. Whenever I don't know the actual day of the game. I guess the 15th or something. Anyway, he deserves to be there. So that's one. Trey Turner should be, and I believe is going to be, an all-star. Third base, Alec Bohm. Tell you what, man, he's making himself a strong case lately. He was an all-star last year. So some of this consideration is going to be based on, well, do they have the reputation? Bohm started at third base last year, and that's partially fan voting. So with the fan base feeling a little bit more sour on Alec Bohm after the trade rumors this offseason, maybe that doesn't happen. But I don't have him as an all-star yet. I don't have him as a definitive non-all-star. We'll see what he does over the next couple of weeks. And if he stays on the tear that he's been on, well, he could find himself in Atlanta as a depth option. JT Realmuto doesn't deserve to be, I don't think, based on his performance this year. That's just me. I'm not trying to talk. Remember, we're talking all-star here. I'm not saying these guys are terrible, but maybe not all-star. Good, maybe not great year this year. But JT is one of those guys that you kind of see. He gets benefit of reputation a lot. The BCIB thing, that doesn't really get tweeted out much more. But trust me, around baseball, he's still a very, very respected backstop. He could get in based on that. I don't think he should be, but I think he could be. Not as clear-cut as Trey Turner, not as upside of Alec Bohm over the next couple of weeks, but keep an eye on him. Maybe. You never know. Outfield, nah. I don't really see anybody. I think Castellanos has had a nice year. I think he's on the outside looking in of the all-star conversation. Nobody in center, nobody in left. That's the reality of the Phillies outfield this year and what feels like forever, honestly. But not going to try and get into the outfield problems again. We know this. We know they need to upgrade the outfield. We know they haven't been great. I don't think they have any all-stars in the outfield. Starting rotation. Zach Wheeler should be an all-star. Jesus Luzardo, if it were up to me, should be an all-star. He had 2 bad starts that were abysmally bad that are going to make his numbers hugely inflated. But if you watch this guy throw this year, he has been one of the better pitchers in baseball. He deserves to be there. Will he? That's going to be on the voters and the manager's decision. But I think Luzardo's deserving. Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, you can make the case, but I'm not too sure. Now, Sanchez, you can make the case because he's been pretty good, not great. But he was there last year, so does reputation exist for Christopher Sanchez? Ranger has been exceptional, but he missed a good amount of time to start the season. So his is more of a has he thrown enough question than has he been good enough, because he's been good enough. But Wheeler should be there. I think Luzardo should be there. I don't know if he will. Wheeler's the only guy I feel comfortable saying or confident in saying he's going to be there. So right now we have 2 lock all-stars. Oh, by the way, we missed a position player. Kyle Schwarber, who I always forget because he doesn't play a position in the field. And I run through, when I do these things mentally, I just run through by position. But I always forget the DH. Kyle Schwarber is right on the edge. I would like to send him. I'd like to see him go. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that with his recent, he started to heat up again. Are homers enough to carry him to the All-Star game? Maybe. Certainly could be. We've seen it before with guys, but DH is also kind of tricky because there's this Shohei Ohtani guy who's DH in the National League, and that dude's pretty good. So we'll see. I don't think it would be this like travesty if Schwarber is not in the All-Star game just because he cooled off recently, but I would not be surprised to see him there. So 2 locks, couple of maybes in like Bohm, Romuto, Schwarber. You're looking at guys in the rotation: Sanchez, Suarez. I don't know. Bullpen, nobody. Like they don't have the bullpen numbers to get guys in. And that's why the bullpen's the weak point of this team. And we knew this already. I'm not trying to disparage the Phillies bullpen any further than they've already been disparaged at points this year. But you see it's significantly less all-star nods than last year, if what I believe to be is true. And that can change over the coming weeks. But is this a bad thing? I don't think so. I don't mind guys not going. Like, I want every Philly to be an all-star. I'm not rooting against guys saying, hey, I hope you're not an all-star because I want you rested for the second half of the season. Like, who am I to tell these guys, like, come on, they get the opportunity to play in an all-star game? That's a huge accomplishment for them. Whether you believe in the voting process or the managerial selection process or not, it's a great nod. It'll be something that they can talk about forever. So I'm not saying I hope they don't make it. I'm saying if they don't, there are upsides to having that time off, resting, recuperating, getting geared up for a second half that's going to be hugely important for a deep postseason run. So I'm not shedding a major tear for anybody right now that's on the outside looking in for the Phillies of all-star opportunities. I will be upset if there are guys that I feel are very deserving. Like, let's say Trey Turner doesn't make it. I'm going to be ticked off. Let's say Zach Wheeler doesn't make it. I'm going to lose all my faith in selections for all-stars ever. But it may be a good thing. Don't put too much stock into all-stars. Remember, last year you had a bunch. You got in the divisional round. This year, not as many. We'll see what the results may yield. We'll also see what the results may yield in tonight's game as the Phillies play their first of 3 out in Houston against the Astros. The Houston Astros are a pretty darn good team. Don't look now. Yeah, they're good again. And they never really go away. They're a well-run organization when they're not cheating. But we'll take a look at the pitching matchup tonight and how the Phillies can try and keep this hot stretch rolling as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk Monarch money first, though, because if you ever checked your bank account and wondered where did all my money go, I did that today. I did a bunch of stuff over the weekend, and I looked, and, well, between dining out and all-night shopping and entertainment and all of that stuff, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Like, even right now, going out to eat, I got Chick-fil-A sitting over there on the counter for when I get done recording today. I need to be making more food at home. Monarch Money helps me see that. Helps me cut down on the things that I'm spending on that I shouldn't be. Plus, if you're managing money with your partner, it's smoother than ever with Monarch Money. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com, and you'll even get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Go ahead and check them out at monarchmoney.com. Phil Stros, after an off day for the Phillies. You love to see them be rested, heading out there to Houston. Big start to the road trip. Is this a defining first step of what should be a big road trip for the Fightins? I don't want to overstate this, but here's something that I'm worried about before we get into the specifics of the game. Is this one of those letdown series for the Phils? Is this a situation where you roll in and you're like red hot off the Mets series and you've won 4 straight series and it's like, yeah, we just beat the brakes off our division opponent in 2 of the 3 games. We're feeling good. We're first in the NL East. And you're all gassed up for that series and you kind of forget, oh, wait, we're playing a couple of really good teams in a row here. I wonder how focused the Phillies are on the Astros. I don't think they're like rolling in just like we don't care about the series, but it's hard sometimes to get back up for another big series after you had so much focus on the Mets. We talked about that Mets series for like a week and a half prior to it happening. You better believe the Phillies knew it was there too and had it circled. And sometimes when you have one thing you're focusing on, you totally forget the next thing up on your calendar. So that'll be big to see the mentality of the team coming in. How much can they keep that focus? Rob Thompson's really good at making sure his teams do that. Over the course of 162, he keeps them very level, never too high, never too low. I do love to see that from him. So it's one of his strengths. They should be ready to roll for this one, but that's something that you have to consider when it comes to the day-to-day grind of being a Major League Baseball player. Do you accentuate one thing, lose focus on another? You can't lose focus on the Astros because they're darn good. And you're going to see a darn good pitcher tonight in Framber Valdez. He's 8-4. He's got a 3.09 ERA, but he's a horse, man. He's thrown 96 innings already this year. He struck out 99 in those 96 innings. The home run hasn't killed him. He's only allowed 6. 75 hits. I mean, the whip is 1.13. Like, he's been really, really good. The only place where you might be able to get Framber Valdez a little bit, he does have 33 walks in 96 innings. So a walk every 3 innings is not a bunch, but that could be the one weak spot that you look at where you say, okay, can we be a little bit more selective? Can we get to the bullpen? Can we find a way to get him maybe a little bit more tired and take advantage? That's something to keep an eye on. Rangers going for the Phils. He's been awesome. 6-1 with a 2.2 ERA. 57 innings pitched. He's only given up 3 home runs. He's kept the ball in the yard, which you want to see continue. That's very impressive considering where the Phillies play most of their games at Citizens Bank Park. So Rangers, really, really great for the Phillies. He's like sneaky. That's what I was saying. In all-star consideration, he's one of the top 3 pitchers in this rotation right now. I'd go Wheeler 1. I'd probably have to go Luzardo 2 just on gut feeling, even though he's had those blow-up starts. I think his ceiling has been the highest this year. And I might go Ranger over Christopher Sanchez. You can't go wrong with any of the 4 guys that are at the top of the Phillies rotation right now. But I'm just saying, Ranger, don't let it be lost on you how good he's been. We had that conversation before. If this is his last year, he's putting together a pretty darn good one with the Philadelphia Phillies. So the pitching should be a pretty even matchup. You got a lefty on the mound. So you should see a righty-heavy lineup, which we just saw on Sunday against the Mets. It had the likes of Otto Kemp and Buddy Kennedy and Johan Rojas, and they were able to score 7 against the Mets and score 5 off David Peterson, who had not given up 5 in a year or 2 worth of appearances on the mound, or starts, I should say, on the mound. So does that lineup go back out there, and does that lineup stay as hot as they looked on Sunday? I'd love to see Stott out there getting some work. I'd love to see Kepler out there getting some work. Brandon Marsh has been red hot. I'd love to see him back out in center field. But Valdez is just a tough lefty for other lefties. You know how you're going to be able to tell, though, something? This is something I want you to keep an eye on because I do firmly believe the Phillies will go righty heavy tonight. An 8:10 p.m. first pitch, by the way, a little bit later because they're out there in Texas. Watch Kyle Schwarber's at-bats. One of the great things that he's developed this year or recently, maybe even trailing back into the back end of last year, is his ability to hit lefty pitching. He's the best left-handed hitter against left-handed pitching in Major League Baseball this year. And he's fixed his mentality and his approach and all of these things. And when he's going good, he can crush lefties. But he's been a little up and down lately. He's felt like he's kind of like your engine's trying to turn over. Like there's a couple of pops in there, but you don't know, okay, why isn't it fully firing? If you see Kyle Schwarber put together some good at-bats, I'm not talking about hammering home runs. I'm talking about just like seeing pitches well, barreling baseballs. If you see him do that against Framber Valdez, it's a pretty good sign that Kyle Schwarber is in a good spot with his swing. And maybe that shows you that he's going to be a big piece in this series, or Dorian Howard. And also a big piece as Bryce Harper continues to be out. We don't know when Harper's coming back yet, and feels like that's getting kind of murky. So you're going to need Schwarber. Watch his at-bats big time tonight. It will be a big indicator of where his swing is at and where his confidence is at the plate. The Phillies are not favored in tonight's game. The Astros actually are heavily favored. Well, not heavily, minus 150 favorites. And ESPN Analytics has them as a 54.3% favorite. If the Phils are going to win this game, one, they got to work Valdez and get his pitch account up early. And 2, Rangers going to have to be just as good as he was last time out. Those are the 2 keys to tonight's game. We'll see if the Phils can accomplish that. We'll keep an eye on it tonight, and we'll react to all of that on tomorrow's episode. But that's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for joining us. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And once again, please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. I appreciate you all very much, and I will talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.